The girl with the fading glow. The hallway lights flickered in the lower level of Outpost V9. The air was dry, cold, and full of metal smells. Human and alien soldiers moved in silence, passing one another without eye contact. No one spoke, unless they had to. But Tom noticed her. She stood near the wall, arms crossed, eyes closed. She wasn't like the other aliens. Her skin, once glowing with soft blue light, now looked pale and dull. Her breath was slow. Her hands were shaking. She was sick, and no one cared. Her name was Lyra, a warrior from the alien race called the Zahari. Her people were once enemies of humans. Even though peace had come, the trust hadn't. Most humans still looked at her with suspicion. Most aliens still looked down on humans like Tom, especially because he wasn't a fighter. He was just a field medic. But Tom kept watching her from the hallway corner, pretending to check his scanner. And then she stumbled. Her legs gave out and she fell to her knees. No one stopped. They walked around her, cold and silent. A few glanced but quickly looked away. Tom dropped everything and rushed to her side. "Hey, you all right?" he said, kneeling. She looked up slowly. Her eyes were dim. Her voice was a weak whisper. "I'm fine," she lied. "You're not fine," Tom said. He grabbed a scanner from his pocket and checked her vitals. Her pulse was low. Her energy signature was falling. "You're crashing. What did you take today?" Lyra didn't answer. "Lyra," Tom said more gently, "did you take your dose?" She turned her head away. Tom understood immediately. The answer was no. Back in the med bay, Tom paced. He had checked the supply list 3 times. The medicine Lyra needed, Zahari core stabilizer, was out of stock. Her kind required 1 dose every 2 days. It kept their bioenergy stable. Without it, their internal systems would shut down. The problem? That medicine was incredibly rare and expensive. Only Zahari Elite received shipments regularly. Lyra wasn't elite. She was just a junior warrior, posted far from her home system. No one cared if she lived or died. Tom rubbed his face. He had 1 emergency dose left. It wasn't Zahari medicine, but a universal stabilizer. It worked on most species, but if he gave it away and something happened to him later, he'd have no backup. He looked at the small tube on his desk. Then he looked toward the hallway, where Lyra sat, trying to breathe, trying to stay awake. He picked up the dose and walked to her. "I don't want your pity," she said when he knelt beside her again. "This isn't pity," he replied. "This is medicine." "It might not even work," she whispered. "Maybe," Tom said. "But maybe it will." She stared at the dose in his hand. Her pride was fighting with her survival. For Zahari, accepting help from another species, especially a human, was shameful. But her hands were trembling. Her skin was starting to lose heat. Finally, she nodded once. Tom injected the dose into her arm. For a moment, nothing happened. Then her body jerked lightly and her skin began to glow again, faintly. At first, then brighter. Her eyes opened wider. She breathed easier. She looked at him in shock. "You gave me your last dose." Tom nodded. "I'll find another if I need it." She stared at him, silent. That night, Tom returned to his room feeling lightheaded. The cold air felt colder now. He laid on his bunk and stared at the ceiling. What if something happened tomorrow? What if he collapsed during duty? He had done the right thing, right? Somewhere, deep inside, he hoped she would have done the same. Next morning, Lyra came to him. She held something in her hand, a glowing medallion with alien symbols etched in silver. "What's this?" Tom asked. "A blood honor token," she said quietly. "In my culture, we give this to someone who risks their life for us." "I didn't risk my life," he said. She looked straight into his eyes. "You did," she replied. But outside, the med bay, others were watching. An alien officer narrowed his eyes, and a human captain made a note in his log. Why was a Zahari girl visiting a human medic? What was going on between them? Whispers began to spread. And soon, things would get dangerous. He saw what others ignored. Tom entered the mess hall with a tray in his hand. The place was half full. Humans on one side, Zahari on the other. That was how it always was. No rule said they had to sit apart. But they did. Old habits. Old hate. Tom walked past both groups and sat at an empty table near the center. That's when he saw her, Lyra. She was sitting alone, not touching her food. Her glow was back, but it was weaker than yesterday. She looked tired again. No one sat near her. Even her own people glanced and then looked away. One Zahari soldier even whispered to another, covering his mouth. Tom couldn't hear it, but he didn't have to. He knew that look. She was being judged, not for being sick, but for accepting help. From a human. Later that day, in the base infirmary, Tom checked the records again. The shipment logs were delayed. No new medicine for Zahari troops had arrived. He slammed the tablet down. Still nothing? Asked Sarah, another medic. Still nothing, he said. She's got maybe 2 days before crashing again. Sarah looked at him. You shouldn't have given her your last dose. I know, he said. But I couldn't just watch her fall over. She's not your responsibility. Tom looked out the window. She is now. That night, Tom visited the Zahari wing. It was a quiet section of the base, glowing faintly, with blue lights and soft hums. He wasn't supposed to be there after curfew. He didn't care. He found Lyra sitting on the floor outside her room, legs crossed, back straight, like a silent statue. You okay? He asked softly. She didn't answer for a few seconds. Then she said, Why did you help me? Tom sat beside her, ignoring the glances from a passing Zahari guard. I had a brother, he said. He died on Earth. Sick. We couldn't afford his medicine. Lyra looked at him now. I still remember the way he looked at me before the end, Tom continued. Like he wanted to live. But no one helped. I swore, if I ever saw someone in the same place, I'd do what no one did for him. Silence. Then she said, I was taught humans are selfish, violent, that you only care for your own. Tom smiled a little. Guess I didn't study hard enough. She almost smiled back, almost. The next day, things got worse. An officer, Commander Jorak, a high-ranking Zahari, called Lyra into his office. She stood straight as he stared her down. You? Brought shame to your people, he said. I didn't betray anyone, Lyra replied calmly. You accepted his help. I was dying. You should have died with honor. She looked up. No. I lived with truth. That sentence left the room in silence. Meanwhile, Tom was facing his own trouble. Captain Renner, the human base commander, summoned him. Tom, what's this I hear about you giving classified medical aid to a Zahari? Tom didn't flinch. I gave her an emergency stabilizer. She was collapsing in the hallway. You broke protocol. She's alive. Renner leaned in. Look, I get it, but we're barely holding this base together. One act like this, and the whole thing can blow up. Tom stood. Then maybe we're not as united as the reports say. The captain stared at him. Stay away from her, Tom. That's an order. Tom didn't respond. That evening, Lyra met Tom in a hidden utility room near the hangar. They spoke in hushed voices. They're watching me, she said. They're watching me too, he replied. You'll get in trouble. So will you. They were quiet. Then she asked, Why do you keep doing this? Tom looked at her. Because I see you when others don't, that's enough. Lyra turned her face away, but not before he saw her eyes. Shining not with glow, but with tears she quickly wiped. Later that night, Tom made a risky decision. He went to the black market trader on the lower level of the base. The trader, half cyborg, half smuggler, grinned when he saw him. I need Zahari stabilizer, Tom said. That stuff's pricey. I have a week's worth of food rations. The trader laughed. Humans really do die for aliens now, huh? Tom didn't laugh. He handed over the food packs. The trader gave him a small vial. Only half a dose, he warned. Tom nodded. It'll do. He found Lyra resting in the repair bay. She was pale again. He handed her the vial. She stared at it. What did you trade for this? Nothing I can't live without, Tom said. She looked like she wanted to argue but didn't. Instead, she took it and for the first time she said, "Thank you." But outside the bays, a hidden security drone blinked, recording, watching, transmitting. The glow returns. The medicine worked. Slowly but surely, Lyra's body came back to life. Her skin began to glow again, bright blue, smooth and steady. Her breathing returned to normal. Her strength was coming back. She stood straighter, walked, faster, and for the first time in days, she smiled. Not fully, not openly, but enough that her eyes didn't look so tired anymore. Tom noticed it the second he saw her. You look alive, he said, grinning. I feel like myself again, she replied quietly. They stood in the hangar bay where they had first spoken freely. This time, her voice didn't shake. Her knees didn't buckle. You saved me again, she said. Tom shook his head. You saved yourself. I just gave a little help. No, Lyra replied, looking at him with more than just thanks in her eyes. You did more than help, but outside things were not quiet. A video clip had leaked. Someone had taken the surveillance footage of Lyra accepting medicine from Tom. Now across the base, both human and alien officers had seen it. Whispers spread through the walls like wildfire. She took his meds? Why is he risking everything for her? This is more than kindness. This is a violation of protocol. Some humans mocked Tom behind his back. Others looked at him with confusion, or even hate. Soldiers he once shared drinks with now avoided him in the hall. Among the Zahari it was worse. Some accused Lyra of weakness. Others said she was dishonoring her bloodline. But she didn't care. Not anymore. That night, Lyra came to Tom's quarters. She knocked softly. He opened. The door surprised. You okay? He asked. She didn't speak. She simply opened her hand and held out a small object. It was her family's life sigil, a curved crystal bound in silver threads. In Zahari culture, it was only given to those who earned the highest form of trust and gratitude. Tom blinked. This is important, right? She nodded. It's part of me. Now it's part of you. Tom held it carefully like it might break. I don't know what to say. You already said enough, she replied, when no one else said anything. They stood there in silence. No words, no rules, no species. Just two beings who saw each other clearly, but not everyone was happy. Commander Jorak watched from a command screen. He narrowed his eyes as he replayed the footage. Unacceptable, he growled. If this continues, others will follow. He pressed a button. Activate internal review. Begin quiet surveillance on both of them. The next day, during a training session, Tom collapsed. He had skipped meals, given up his rations, slept poorly. Lyra was in the same hall when she heard the thud. She ran to him instantly, pushing past the human trainees. He needs help, she shouted, but no one moved, not right away. Not until she picked him up, with her own arms, carrying him, across the floor in front of everyone. Gasps filled the room. One Zahari soldier muttered, What is she doing? A human officer whispered, She's carrying him like one of her own. She placed Tom on the medbay table, panting. The base medic looked stunned. Lyra turned to him. He gave up everything to keep me alive. Now you help him. But that's not a request. The medic stared, then nodded quickly. Tom awoke hours later. His body felt lighter, his vision clearer. He looked up and saw Lyra sitting beside him. You passed out, she said. You carried me? He asked. Didn't want you to break your neck, she said dryly. They both smiled. Everyone saw, he added. I know. They're talking again. Let them. That evening, 2 senior officers met in secret. One human, one Zahari. They sat across from each other in the observation deck. "This is growing," the human said. "She's showing loyalty to him, publicly. If we punish them now, we'll be the villains. If we wait too long, we lose control." They agreed on one thing. Something had to be done. Soon. Back in her room, Lyra looked at the stars. Tom's sigil now hung from her belt, and her own life sigil, once worn with pride, was now on Tom's nightstand. 2 symbols. 2 lives. Shared, trusted, connected. For the first time in her life, Lyra believed something crazy. Maybe unity wasn't weakness. Maybe it was power. And for the first time in his life, Tom believed something impossible. Maybe aliens weren't enemies. Maybe they were just people. Rumors and rebellion. Something had changed on the base. Not just between Tom and Lyra, but in the air, in the eyes of the people. You could feel it in the mess hall, in the locker rooms, in the silence after. Patrol briefings. People didn't speak it aloud, but they all knew. A human had risked everything for a Zahari, and she had returned the favor. Some called it weakness, others whispered it was rebellion. But many, in both species, felt something deeper. Confusion. Rules said don't trust the other side, but what if the rules were wrong? Tom walked down the corridor toward the med bay, tired but upright again. His body was healing, slowly. He could feel the whispers behind his back like wind brushing his neck. Is that him? The one she carried? He gave her medicine? She gave him her sigil? Tom ignored them, but he felt every word. Lyra, meanwhile, was facing pressure of her own. Commander Jorak stood before her in the Zahari control room. His voice was like stone. "You have broken our code." "I saved a life," she replied, standing tall. "You bonded with a human," he snapped. "You humiliated your house." "I honored myself," she said louder. The room went silent. "No, Zahari," he growled, "has ever bowed to a human." "I didn't bow," she answered. "I stood with him." Back in the human command, Captain Renner reviewed surveillance with a serious face. "She's become a symbol," he told the officers. "That's dangerous." "Sir," one soldier asked, "should we separate them?" "If we do," Renner replied, "we make her a martyr, and him a hero." He stared at the screen. "No. We watch. We wait." Later that day, Tom and Lyra met. In the training bay, it was empty but full of tension. "Everyone's watching," Tom said. "I know. They think we're plotting something." She raised an eyebrow. "Are we?" He smirked. "No, but maybe we should." She laughed, a soft, quiet sound that echoed gently off the walls. "Tell me," she said seriously, "if you could do it all again, would you give me that dose?" Tom didn't hesitate. Every time. That night, something unexpected happened. Young Zahari cadet, barely more than a teen, approached Lyra in the hallway. He looked nervous. "I saw what you did," he said. "With the human." She said nothing. "I think you did the right thing." Then he reached into his coat and pulled out a small vial. "Take this," he whispered. "A backup dose, in case you need it again." Lyra took it slowly, eyes wide. "Where did you get this?" "I had extra. I'm healthy. You're important." And then he walked away. The next morning in the human canteen, a mechanic passed Tom a bag. "What's this?" Tom asked. "Spare medical tools. Zahari compatible, just in case." "Why are you helping?" The mechanic shrugged. "You helped one of theirs. Doesn't seem fair to just let you stand alone." Word spread. Some supported, some hated it, some stayed silent. But change was growing, like a storm on the edge of the horizon. Then it happened. A fight broke out in the cargo bay. 2 human soldiers were mocking a Zahari worker, pushing, insulting, laughing. Lyra arrived first. She stepped between them. "Back off," she said. They laughed. "Aw, look who's protecting her pet species." Then Tom arrived. He stood beside her. "I'd choose her over you two any day," he said. That made one of the soldiers angry. He swung. Lyra blocked it. Fast. The human hit the floor. Tom stood over him. "This is not the old war. Wake up." Security arrived and pulled everyone apart. But the message was clear. They weren't hiding anymore. The next day, Commander Jorak called for Lyra's reassignment. Captain Renner requested Tom be removed from medical duty. Both requests were denied. Why? Because half the base had already chosen sides and most were choosing them. In the night, Tom and Lyra sat outside near the landing pads under the stars. "You know this is just the beginning," she said. "I know. They're going to try harder to split us. I won't leave." She looked at him. "I won't either." They sat side by side, alien-human enemies once, now something far more dangerous, allies. The cost of kindness. Tom knew he was getting worse. He didn't say anything to Lyra. Not yet. Not when she finally looked stronger. Not when her glow was stable again and her eyes no longer drifted shut mid-conversation. But every time he stood up too fast, his vision blurred. His hands shook when he tried to hold his tools. His chest felt tight like a fist pressing inside his lungs. The stabilizer dose he had given her wasn't just a gift. It had been his only lifeline in case. His old lung scar flared up and now it was flaring up. Hard. He kept working anyway. He helped clean wounds, deliver reports, and file scans. He told himself he just needed sleep, food, rest. But even as he told those lies, he could feel the truth inside his bones. The cost was catching up to him. Lyra noticed first. She watched from across the training hall as Tom leaned against a wall, sweating. His skin was pale and his lips looked dry. She walked over. "Tom?" He looked up. "Yeah?" "You're sick." He smiled weakly. "Just tired." She touched his wrist. He flinched. "You're burning," she whispered. Before he could stop her, his legs gave out. He collapsed. Gasps echoed through the hall. Humans froze. Zehari stared. Lyra dropped to her knees. "Medic!" she shouted. No one moved. One human said, "He helped an alien. Let the alien help him." Another, Zehari muttered. "This is their problem." Lyra's jaw tightened. She picked Tom up, again, and carried him herself. Her arms were strong now, thanks to his gift. Now she was the one saving him. The med bay. Doors burst open. The base medic stood in shock as Lyra stormed in. "Put him here," the medic said. "No," Lyra said, placing him gently. "You listen first." The medic hesitated. She looked around. Then she raised her voice. "I want everyone to hear this." More people entered the med bay. Human soldiers, Zehari workers, officers, technicians. Lyra stood tall. "This human," she said, "gave me his only medicine, knowing it might cost him everything." Murmurs filled the room. He could have walked away. Everyone else did. But he didn't. "He saved me." The base fell quiet. "You called it weakness, cowardice, shame. But it was strength." She looked down at Tom, unconscious. He did what no warrior on this base had the courage to do. He saw me not as an alien, not as an enemy, but as someone worth saving. Commander Jorak stepped forward, his voice sharp. "This is not a trial. This is emotional noise." Lyra turned to him, eyes glowing. "You want facts? Here's a fact. Your people watched me die and did nothing. A human saved me." The silence was heavier than any battle. Then from the back someone clapped. A Zehari. Then a human. Then more. One by one people stood. Not all, but enough. Tom woke hours later, blinking. The first thing he saw was Lyra sitting beside his bed, her eyes red from lack of sleep. "You're still here," he whispered. "I told you I won't leave." He coughed. "I heard. You told them everything?" She nodded. "They needed to know." Tom smiled weakly. You're braver than me? No, she said softly. I just learned from you. That night, the base command received a strange message, a request for formal recognition from both human and Zahari officers. They wanted Tom to receive the Unity Commendation, a rare honor only given to those who saved lives across species lines. Captain Renner raised an eyebrow. So, they really mean it? Yes, sir, his assistant said. The base is changing. In the Zahari chambers, Commander Jorak received a message too. It was from the Zahari High Council. They had seen the reports, the footage, the speeches. They were watching, and they were interested. Outside the medbay, Lyra walked slowly. Some still stared at her. But now, some nodded. Some stepped aside. One young human even whispered, "Thank you." She stopped, turned, smiled. The cost of kindness was high, but the reward was hope. And for the first time, the walls of Outpost V9 didn't feel so cold. Not because the systems had changed, but because people had. She fights for him. The next day, Lyra stood at the center of the Zahari War Hall. The high walls glowed with blue energy. Ancient banners floated above her, symbols of her people's greatest warriors. In front of her sat the Zahari High Council, the most powerful leaders of her kind. She had never stood before them before. Now, she stood because of a human. You called this meeting, one elder said, voice cold. Yes, Lyra replied firmly. Speak. She took a breath. I am here to speak for the human named Tom Carver. Murmurs echoed through the council chamber. Lyra continued. He saved my life. Twice. First, when no one else would give me medicine. Second, when everyone else looked away, as I was fading. The elder frowned. He broke protocol. So did you. He broke fear, Lyra said, stepping forward. And I broke silence. Another elder leaned forward. You gave him your sigil. I did. Unheard of. Lyra looked them in the eye. So is what he did. Back on Outpost V9, Tom sat near the window in the recovery wing. He was improving, slowly. But he had no idea what Lyra was doing. He thought maybe she had returned to her people. Or maybe she was facing punishment. He didn't know she was fighting for him. Not with weapons, but with words that reached stars away. The council debated for hours. Lyra stood the whole time. Finally, one of the eldest speakers turned to her. What do you ask of us? She didn't hesitate. I ask that Tom Carver be honored by our people, that we send medical supplies to Outpost V9 for humans and Zahari, and that his name be remembered not as a rule breaker, but as a bond maker. The room was silent, until one elder said, And if we say no? Lyra stepped forward. Then I return my sigil, my name, my rank, all of it. They stared at her. She bowed, slow and deep, not in shame, but in power. 3 days later, a Zahari ship entered Outpost V9's airspace. It was massive, lined with golden lights and royal insignias. The base froze in awe. Tom watched from his window, blinking. What is that? Captain Renner entered the medbay with a stunned face. That, Carver, he said, is a personal delivery from the Zahari High Council. Lyra stepped down from the ship, holding a small silver box. Behind her walked 3 Zahari, envoys and 2 healers. She walked straight into the medbay and stood before Tom. He sat up, confused. What's going on? She smiled and opened the box. Inside was a medal, curved like a crescent moon, embedded with both the human flag and the Zahari crest. This is for you, she said. The Bond of Life medal. Tom blinked. Is that real? Very, Lyra said. Only 5 have ever been given. You're the first human. She placed it around his neck. He looked down at it. You did this? She nodded. I fought for you. Later that night, A ceremony was held on the landing deck. Humans and Zahari stood together, not perfectly, not comfortably, but together. Lyra and Tom stood in front of them. Captain Renner gave a speech. Commander Jorak stood silently in the shadows. When the moment came, both sides stepped forward. One human officer handed Tom a new badge, marking him as Joint Medical Honor Officer, a rare title. One Zahari elder placed a second sigil on Lyra's arm, marking her as a bridgekeeper, a title of respect given to those who bring peace between cultures. After the event, Tom and Lyra sat side by side beneath the stars. "I still can't believe it," Tom said, touching the medal. "I can," she replied. "You really fought them, didn't you?" "Yes." "With truth." He turned to her. "And you didn't walk away." "I never planned to." They sat quietly. Then Tom said, "So what now?" Lyra looked up at the stars. "Now," she said softly, "we build what they said was impossible." Far above them, news of the event began to spread across channels and networks. One headline read, "Human medic and alien warrior join forces. Galaxy responds to new symbol of unity." Another read, "Zahari Council honors human for saving one of their own." Across colonies and ships, people began to ask a question that once felt dangerous. What if we're not so different after all? One dose changed everything. A single act of kindness. That's how it started. One dose of medicine. One choice to help someone who didn't look like him. Someone he was taught to fear. And now, the stars were listening. Weeks had passed. Since the ceremony, Outpost V9 was no longer the same. The medbay now had both human and Zahari healers working side by side. Meals were shared between tables, not split by race. Jokes were exchanged in different languages. Even patrols had mixed units. It wasn't perfect, but it was real, and it all started with Tom and Lyra. Tom walked through the engineering hall feeling stronger than ever. His breath came easy now. The Zahari healers had taught him new breathing techniques, methods humans had never known. Lyra met him at the doorway. She carried a small tablet. "What's this?" Tom asked. "A message," she replied. "From the Galactic Council." His eyes widened. "The Galactic Council?" She nodded. "They want us to attend the Unity Conference. On Astral 5, Tom blinked. "That's huge. They want us to speak." "Me? Speak? In front of hundreds of leaders?" Lyra smiled. "You've already done something harder." 2 weeks later, they stood on a shining platform surrounded by thousands of delegates, humans, Zahari, and many others from across the stars. Tom cleared his throat. He looked at Lyra. She gave a small nod. Then he began, "I'm not a soldier. I'm not a leader. I'm a medic." The hall fell silent. "I don't speak many languages. I don't understand every custom, but I know what pain looks like. I know what suffering is, and when I saw someone hurting, I helped." He paused. "Not because it was my job, but because it was right." Lyra stepped forward next. "I was raised in a world where humans were seen as monsters," she said. "But when I was dying, no one from my side came. Only he did." She held up a glowing image, a hologram of the sigil she had given Tom. "This is not a symbol of weakness. It's a sign of courage." The room stood, and for the first time in history, humans and Zahari clapped together. Back at Outpost V9, things kept changing. New recruits were trained in bond empathy, a joint program that taught soldiers to understand the emotions and cultures of others. A new medical wing was built with tech from both species, and at the center of it all stood a plaque. One dose, one bond, one future. In honor of Tom Carver and Lyra Velsa one evening, Tom and Lyra stood on the upper balcony. Stars stretched out before them like rivers of light. "Think they'll ever forget?" Tom asked. "Not if we keep reminding them," she said. Looked down at his hand where the medallion still rested around his neck. "Funny," he said. I gave you medicine, but you gave me so much more. She looked at him. You gave me life. I gave you voice. A soft wind blew as two children ran past, a human boy and a Zahari girl laughing. They wore mixed uniforms. They didn't care about the past. They only saw the present. In a quiet chamber above the stars, an old general from another world wrote, "A message." He had watched the speech. He had felt something change. He wrote one sentence and sent it to his war council. We can no longer call them enemies. We must call them examples. One dose. That was all it took. Not to heal a body, but to heal the space between hearts. And from that small act, ripples spread, across borders, across species, across galaxies. Because sometimes, the strongest weapon is not a sword, it's a choice. And sometimes peace begins not with a treaty, but with a hand reaching out.